Hi, Lee. What are your thoughts on the Barnsley game? A few days later, does it come down to game management to see out that last minute?
Yes, I think for sure. It's definitely a scenario that we've worked on over the last 3 or 4 days. I think it's important to do that, particularly with the personnel and the young players that we had on the pitch. I don't think there was a lack of effort, maybe a bit of a lack of nous, if you like, and it's been a good week really, because it's been a week that we've been able to actually coach a little bit. Often with the rigours of the Championship, it becomes more about the recovery than it does about the coaching. So we've been able to have a couple of double sessions and a couple of single sessions building into the Sunday game that are actually helping the individuals, because my job as a head coach is to help particularly the young players and to make us better. And a lot of work with Masengo today, a lot of work this week with Semenyo on various elements of their performance on and off the ball. So it's been a good week.
Is cohesion a thing maybe? Because obviously we've just been talking to Thomas Callister. I think that's the first time he's played alongside Ashley Williams. I'm guessing that obviously going forward you'd expect that sort of thing to improve on, because those guys are playing alongside those guys, getting used to them, where they're going to be positioned and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always looking for a settled side, aren't you? I think the cohesion comes from obviously the work that we do in training, but when you're bringing somebody back from injury like Thomas and there's a couple of new players, naturally it's going to take a couple of games plus 10-15 sessions to get into the swing of the strengths and weaknesses of your partner. So I think, as we've talked about before, some key players out and key players injured. I'm okay, of course. It's the worst feeling in the world, by the way, conceding in the last minute, and don't let me or anybody else convince you that it's not, because it was and it is. But at the same time, what are you going to do? You're going to bury your head in the sand, or you're going to turn up and try and make individuals and the team better. And I'm very, very confident in the group of players that we've got. I'm very, very confident moving forward, because I believe in the attributes of the individuals that we've got. If you'd have offered me a true number 6 in that last 5 minutes, whether that be Lee Johnson, if I could have signed a contract, Khalifa Cisse, anybody, just to sit in there, Corey Smith with one leg, I would have probably taken it, because that was what we needed. It was clear and obvious, and unfortunately we just couldn't see that last 45 seconds out. But again, if you don't win, you learn, and we must make sure that when we go 2-0 up in the next game, we manage the game better. Potentially could have gone 3-0 up, because I felt it was a penalty on O'Dowda. But we've got to move on from that now, and we've got a very big game on Sunday again, and a game that we're thoroughly looking forward to, and feel on the back of one loss in 14, like still reasonably confident in our abilities as a team.
So onto the big game then. The big question that a lot of fans are asking is, where's Adam Naj? What's the latest with him? Is he back in training?
First thing is, well done for pronouncing the name, because you're a better man than me, because I can't get it. I just call him Adam now. But yeah, he's nearing ever closer. Him and Corey Smith have both trained. Corey over the last sort of 7-8 days. Yesterday, Corey had an outstanding day. And looked to me like the real sort of deal again, if you like, and I was very encouraged by that, because the amount of time he's been out, you think to yourself, right, is he going to get back to what he was? And I know that if anybody can, Corey Smith can, because of his character and his attributes, and the same with Adam. Obviously it's slightly different because he hasn't been as long out. He had the injection in his ankle, and that was the key sort of catalyst really in the progression, and like I say, he's trained the last couple of days and with no pain, and that's successful.
That's good. Obviously a lot of fans will see that he's been called up again by Hungary.
Yeah.
So how does that work in terms of, do you now assess Adam over the next few days as to whether he goes away with them, or will he definitely go away with them and they'll have a look at him themselves? Or is it possible that even they might be involved on Sunday, and again we wait and see and see if he actually goes away with his national team?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the power is all in the weight of the national side. So even if you had your leg chopped off in an accident, then they could still call somebody up and assess them with their own medical staff and doctors. So effectively, we're powerless to stop any player joining up from the national squad. Obviously, you build relationships with national squads and people and doctors and the medical teams in their discussions. So with the case of Thomas Callas, for example, getting called up and then obviously not joining up with the squad, we send the scan, we send the report from the surgeon. Thomas discusses with his team doctor and his team manager, and everybody creates the logic that it's better to stay. Obviously with Adam that was different. It's very well documented how disappointed I was in the first call up and playing the game. I don't feel like that at this point. I feel it's the right thing for him to do, to be called up, assessed and then used if fit, or not used depending on how they see fit in what is a very big game for them. And obviously it's very important for the individuals as well to be involved in that. But at that point it was a 6 to 8 week injury in which he played after 2.5-3 weeks, and that killed Bristol City because it knocked him back, and then that 6-8 week period basically went back to day one. So you can imagine a player of that quality is frustrating, and make no mistake, of course I made my feelings known because it's the right thing to do for the player as well. So in terms of Adam, again, it's a day by day thing at the moment. I do expect him to go with the national side, and day by day he's got a responsibility as well to be professional, and sometimes players try and be the hero and it's the wrong time to be the hero, and actually it's braver to say no, I'm not quite right. So again, it'll be led by the player and by the medical staff at Bristol City, and then obviously the communication that we have with Hungary.
Yeah, just finally on him, have you spoken to him face to face about this? I'm guessing you probably have.
Yeah, of course I have. Yeah.
And how's that conversation gone? Is he? I guess he's kind of torn between two places as well.
I think that he's still he's not a senior player. You know, he hasn't gone through this a lot in his career. He's very, very passionate about playing for his country, and Hungary are in a position where they're close to qualifying. You know, you can understand it felt like a cup final for the country in the game that he played in and got injured. So yeah, I think that we've had the conversation. I've expressed my disappointment both in him and the national side for that decision that was made, given the discussions. But we don't hold a grudge, you know. We put it down to experience and we crack on.
Have you spoken to Benik Afobe recently, and how did his operation go? And what's the plan with him? Is he going to be staying at the club, or will he go back to Stoke, or how do you see that?
Yeah, well, I think it's like unresolved, if you like, at the moment. Certainly the operation was done here. Benik moved his family and kids in school and all that type of stuff. Stoke naturally will have a Who is it?
Producer, but I don't
know. Okay. Stoke naturally will have a big say in it because he's effectively their asset with whatever 2.5-3 years left in his contract. So obviously a managerial change as well now. So for me, yes, I've got a good relationship with Benik, and we are in contact like every 3 or 4 days, whether it be face to face or via message. But at the same time, actually in this scenario, I'm quite a small pawn in the decision-making process.
Hopefully back before the end of the season?
I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, hopefully. I think Benik's really positive about that being the case, which is good. Like, that's your starting point. I suppose in one sense he's got the experience of going through that injury before, and he did get back in that sort of 7-month spell. But the well-being of the player is first and foremost, and then we'll have to see. I think Benik will be keen to push it, absolutely, but a lot of factors got to go in there, and hopefully his positivity and his experience in going through the rehab process for the injury before will stand him in good stead to accelerate that time span.
Seven-side derby then Sunday. Nicholas Eliasson, he must be really pushing for contention, because obviously he's now the league's leading assist maker from just 3 starts, and he's probably a little bit unlucky to not play more.
Yeah, he is. He's probably the only one in the squad that's a victim of the formation change, and I think that if you imagine what's happened to us and where our strengths have lied over the sort of course of the season, we've been strong, if you like, in that central sorry, that centre half area. I think Nicholas is world class when it comes to those deliveries in the box. I think, like, off the ball, our team sometimes hasn't complimented him. I think, like, Mark Ashton, I talk to him all the time, and we go back to old teams that we played in that he's managed. Been a CEO of. Watford's a good example. When they got promoted, you could put Eliasson in that team, and he's got sort of 8 or 9 players looking after him tactically, like physically. Do you know what I mean? That bouncers, if you like, and he'd be there to provide a job. At the moment, we haven't quite got that perfect blend and balance to play Nick for 90 minutes every game, particularly in the formation that we're playing. So we value Nicholas very, very highly. We rate him highly. We'd love to keep him at the club and keep developing and keep growing with him. Yes, he's had a bit of a frustrating patch for the last sort of 10-15 games, but unfortunately that's life at a Championship club. It's no different to the likes of Sammy Smodic, Callum O'Dowda that's had spells out the side. I go back to Bobby Reid that had spells out the side, and Corey Smith, where I remember Corey Smith and Bobby Reid not even travelling to a game sort of in my second year here. So at times the team, well, always the team is the most important thing, and whether Nicholas is starting from the start or affecting games from the bench, then it's up to him to be as professional as he can, and when he comes on, like he has done, produce those moments of brilliance like he has, and that's all he can do. Keep knocking on the door, and without question of a doubt, he is going to get opportunity over that sort of next 10 to 15 games from the start.
No fam obviously this weekend. How do you assess your forward options at the moment, Lee? Obviously Marley Watkins came in. I think you were impressed with the role he played at Barnsley, but obviously you've got Rodri there as well, slightly different player, and obviously Semenyo there as well, who you spoke about earlier, saying you've been working with him this week. Can you give us some insight about your thinking with those guys? Do you see them as like guys for different jobs in the team, or? Yeah,
I think I suppose you look at stage of their development. Weimann is the finished article at Championship level, and exactly what we need. Antoine Semenyo, huge potential, but lacks genuine pedigree in terms of his academy days. You know, he hasn't had the the coaching, for example, that someone like Bobby Reid would have done. He joined us quite late. So I think the tactical side of Antoine's game needs improving, and that's fine. That's our job as coaches. That's his job to be a good student, and our job to help him and guide him along the way. I think with Rodri, probably what I learnt from the home game and when he started, that at the moment his fitness is conducive to a sort of cameo, if you like. Probably up to about 45 minutes now at some point, but not quite from the start. So I'm not worried. We've got a lot of options. Marley Watkins I thought was excellent and very unselfish and powerful in his running. It was a threat. I was pleased for him because he's been in the wilderness, if you like, in terms of opinion, and I think sometimes that's harsh. We can rule players in and rule players out, and I was pleased for him, and I was pleased that the fans saw the best version of Marley on the day. And obviously he's a physical presence, and he's the type of player that you wouldn't want to play against. I was disappointed that he got cramp, if I'm honest, but I understood, given the fact that the level of intensity mentally that it took to put the effort and the sprinting power that he did on the day.
How's your relationship with Neil Warnock? Did you speak to him much over the summer? Because obviously Marlon Pack went over there, and there was a chance, I think, before we were disconnected.
Unpopular opinion, I quite like Neil Warnock. And yeah, listen, first of all, I do respect the jobs that he's done throughout his career. like over the last couple of years, I've definitely got to know him better. Obviously, through being in Championship, playing against, talking to him after games, meeting him at games, discussing various things, and reserve games and various situations like that. So yeah, I mean, look, for a coach like myself, you're always looking to. If you take the sort of the rivalry aside of the seven-side derby, then it's interesting to pick the brains of any successful manager, and one thing Neil Warnock's been at Championship level is successful. So I think that given the fact that we've got, obviously Bobby's gone now, but 3 ex-players of ours currently playing for Cardiff, is right, isn't it? 3 ex-players? Yeah. Flinty, Packy, who's the other one? Tomlin. And there's common ground there and common connection. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It's obviously not about me and Neil Warnock, the game. It's about the fans, you know what I mean, having a good day and enjoying the team's performance. It's about the performance of the individuals and us, and going to get a result at what is a difficult place to get a result.
You mentioned Antoine there. I don't know if you've been aware, but he's been getting quite a lot of grief from fans who've kind of accused him of a lack of application when he's come on. I just wonder if that's something you've been aware of, and if that's not fair. But I just wonder if you're going to take.
Well, I think Antoine should be the most confident person in the world right now. You know, in terms of like a club, we've given him that pathway. Like we have to sort of commit, if you like, to one club developed player on the bench, of which we've done. I definitely don't think it's a lack of application. I think that nowadays the modern player has to deal with a lot. He was given a very good contract by the football club because he deserved it. I think that comes into it. You know, he's a young boy, effectively learning his way in the game. Like we talked about the pedigree and the experiences that he hasn't had compared to a lot of players that come in and get thrust into the limelight. And now he's experiencing these life experiences, including opinions from external influencers. And I think young players have to deal with the social media now. I think like back in my day, it wasn't something that you had to necessarily deal with. The worst probably was the forums. And if you then didn't look on the forums, like, you know what I mean, it wasn't influencing you, because nobody likes to hear negative things about themselves, but in positions like myself, you develop a thick skin and you have to. But as an 18, 19-year-old coming through, you just want to be loved, and whether that's from the coaches, from the fans, but it'll be good for him. Whatever happens, like you got to learn from it. You got to put the experience in. If I can assure you, if I felt there was a lack of application, I'd be on him like a ton of bricks. A tactical lack of awareness, yes. I think that there's elements to his game, the spatial awareness, understanding when, where, why, how to press. Again, I come back to the experience of the 11 around you. Sometimes you can be looked after, if you like, by a senior player in terms of communication. Stay close to them. I guarantee you now, if you watch Antoine Semenyo in 8-a-sides like there was today, and you was another club, you'd be saying, right, can I write you a cheque for £20 million? Because he's powerful, his touch is good, he's very, very clean. When he hasn't got to think, he's outstanding. And I think what we've got to remember is, yes, he's a physical presence and he's a big lad, but at the moment, at times he's been caught in the headlights, and that's not due to lack of application, that's due to a lack of understanding. And we're actually starting probably 2 or 3 years behind a normal academy player that would come through this football club, because he hasn't been integrated into our system and our way of working through like the 6-7 years that some of the players have had that have come through into the first team in previous years.
It's a good challenge as a coach, I would imagine that.
I think it's a good challenge, yeah, both. In terms of the individual, I think it's important for him. You know, he's got to, like, the one criticism I'd have of him is he doesn't ask enough questions. And like the difference between Hanno and Masengo, for example, I even got home when we Diet Coke and my little sip of whiskey to calm down from a match day, and Masengo's putting me under pressure to go through his clips, so I'm going through them on Monday morning with him. And that's it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think, again, it's necessarily a lack of application or attitude. I think it's just the confidence to say, look, I need help here. Do you know, like, I want to sit down, I want to learn, and really you should be picking the brains. Any young player should be relentless in picking the brains of myself and all the coaches, because I guarantee you, if one of the coaches said, no, I'm not taking you through your clips, I'd sack them. Because that's not what we're there for. We are there to develop and to help these lads improve and get better.
You mentioned on Friday about back to basics. I don't know if that was set pieces specifically, or
yeah,
is that something?
Do you know what?
Been a good week.
Yeah, on probably review as a sort of Monday morning quarterback, if you like, in the cold light of day. Yeah. I'm not so sure. Yeah, basics in terms of the structure of the midfield. It was more that. There was 4 or 5 times I could have thrown a blanket over my 3 centre midfielders, and that's not conducive to losing the ball and then being in possession, in position. And I think that's something that obviously we've looked to work on this week is that structure of the midfield. And listen, sometimes it's personnel. Like I said, we didn't have a true number 6 on the pitch, and you could see I was patching up all over the gaff by trying to move various players into various positions to cope. But it's definitely a bit of an evolution of our side if we're going to play the 5 to be able to dominate that space in the middle of the pitch.
And that area of the pitch, Josh, how's he been this week?
Yeah, he hasn't trained, so we'll have to assess him. Like, he had a back spasm that ended up quite bad. So again, we'll have a look at him Saturday morning, see how he is. He has had osteopath treatment, so with a bit of luck, that will sort of settle. Somebody that's used to having back problems myself with pelvis and vertebrae and stuff like that. I was the same as a player. I needed that, like, it's almost like an MOT where they can realign you and make you half an inch taller.
Just one final question. I don't know if you've got an opinion on this, but switching sports slightly to rugby. I don't know if you saw what happened with Saracens this week.
No, go on, enlighten me.
Well, basically, Premiership Rugby deducted them 35 points.
Oh, did they?
And fined them £5 million for breaching the salary cap.
Wow.
Now, it may not seem relevant, but obviously with the Championship and I don't know if you want to call it shenanigans, but in terms of clubs, I know you've been sort of vocal about bending of the rules. Is that fair? I don't know. And I just wonder if you look at kind of what Premiership Rugby have done, think about the EFL, and if there's maybe lessons that can be learned from the other there.
I think it's work in progress, that, isn't it? I think, like, we've got to commit to something and be brave of it, because inevitably it's about the fans. Like, for me, it's about the fans and the workers, and I'm not talking about the likes of me as the workers. I'm talking about the likes of the kit lady. Do you know what I mean? The office staff, the commercial team. Like, we've got a responsibility as custodians, if you like, of a particular job, to keep this club and the community moving forward, and to inspire and to encourage and to impassion, if you like, people to support their club, and to everything that feeds off the back of that sort of tribal feeling of supporting a club that does good in the community. So for me, it has to be managed, because where does it stop? You know, like, there's a lot of money going out of the game with agents. It's, again, hard to stop. So it has to be managed, and everybody's chasing that sort of 100 million, whatever it is, honeypot that is the Premier League. And if we start doing that in the wrong way, then communities and workers and people are going to be affected. So, like, I do agree, as much as I would love to spend £1 billion of anybody's money on players, and start off with world-class players and then try and improve from that point, like, I am a believer in the sustainability of the community club and the football that works around that. So I do think that sanctions are important. I think they have to be fair. I don't think people should not be allowed to be innovative and to not bend the rules, but to be brave in the way that they move the organisation and the club and the structure forward. But I do think if it starts to threaten the existence of the football club, then there's got to be serious sanctions, both in terms to warn others of the future and the potential sanctions, and also to stop the current regime and overzealous in their spending.